bonk! And here we go. Here we are, or here we go. Finally, F1 is back after a month of whatever you want to call it, summer break, summer disaster, summer pain, some may call it, because, well, 1 month without F1 action, we are stuck in the Sims. But luckily for us, we have this game and we can enjoy this while waiting for qualifying or whatever that's going to take place. So, Zandvoort, a very high downforce track. Quite obvious. There's no other things that's going to give away. That's a lot of high-speed corners, long corners, which is going to require a lot of downforce so that you can take those lines almost flat in qualifying. Some of it is flat in qualifying, and then in the race it's just a slight lift or a slight dab on the brakes. Anywho's, let's get into the setup and straight away let's see what we can do. Now you might have noticed I lost it a bit on the chicane towards the end of the lap. Well, that's because I forgot to turn up my brake bias to 54, and well, really that's just a risk that you have to take. 53 is going to give you that a bit more rotation that I wanted there, but 54 would have been just nicer. Anyway, probably lost a tenth or tenth and a half there. We'll come back and find that time some other day. Now again, this setup as usual, the way I do is I'll just take the time trial setup, practice a few laps until I get to a decent pace in time trial, take that into Grand Prix mode and then start modifying that according to how the car reacts to it and how I want it to drive. Alright, so with that I've come up with a, well, more of a race setup here that you can see here. 45 front wing, 40 rear wing. This is pretty high, but you know, still considered to be on the lower side for Zandvoort. Again, you can experiment with much lower wings if you really want to be a bit quick on the straights, but in my opinion, from what I tested briefly in half race, it's not really worth it because you're going to be losing a lot of time in the corners. You're not going to be close enough in the first place to even benefit from slipstream, you know, if you're on equal pace with someone, if you're in a DRS train. So might as well have a little bit higher downforce and keep your tires alive for a little longer and play the catch-up game on tire life. In race conditions, you can always go 46 at the start. I'll definitely recommend this because the car feels much heavier and less pointy on the mediums and the hard tires, regardless of which one you start on. Even if you start on the soft tires, my bad. Even if you start on the soft tires, you'll definitely need a bit more front wing so that the car is a bit more responsive in the race conditions. So 45 for qualifying works just nice. Again, time trial is sort of weird. Hot lap is always enabled. There's no tire sliding, tire temperatures, and that kind of creates understeer and oversteer in unnecessary places. That's why I recommend you trying it out in Grand Prix mode, in online mode, whichever mode that you want to race on, career mode even, so that you get a feel of the setup in the actual conditions, not time trial, right? Time trial just to get yourself up to pace. So 45, 40 or 46, 40 works just nice. You can even go a click high on the rear wing if you need to. Otherwise, this is just fine. Transmission. Now there are a few options here I've explored. One is if you go full front 50 wing, you can go up to 54 or 55 off throttle. It kind of gives you the same balance in the car. You don't feel that much understeer or oversteer, you know, wherever you need that. And 55 off throttle is going to make your car a lot more stable, and 50 wing is going to give you a lot of pointiness into the corner, and this is going to keep your car a lot more stable in mid corner. I didn't really like it. I prefer it to be rotating initially on entry, so I've left it on 50 off throttle so it turns a bit more on entry, and then I've reduced the front wing to, you know, kind of balance that out. Gave me a better aero balance as well on the exit of corners. So you can always try this out. You can offset things here and there to find a similar feeling and probably find some time. On throttle, 55 works just nice. You can use 50 in all the fast corners here. That is a good thing. I'll recommend you keeping it at 55 or at least the first corner and the third corner, the first banking that we have. So because these are kind of slow speed acceleration zones, you will need a bit more straight line acceleration. So 55 is going to help you to straighten out the car, less wheel spin as you're going uphill. Suspension geometry, no secret here. Right, left, minimum camber, minimum toe is the fastest and by far kind of stable as well. You can increase the rear toe if you want a bit more stability. If you want a lot more mid corner grip, like while going through the long corners, if you feel the car is just understeering, you've tried everything else, you can always come back and customize the setup. Well, if you go too high on your front camber, you're going to lose a bit of entry entry speed in a way, and entry cornering ability, but you gain that back in the mid corner. So you can always try this out if you feel you need to. Same for the rear. If you keep it on minimum, it's going to be a lot more balanced and stable on entry, nice on entry. Whereas if you go higher in the rear camber, it's going to give you a lot more mid cornering grip. So you'll notice like the downhill Skavlag or whatever you call it in the start of sector 2, right? And all those long corners, you will have a lot more grip. You'll have to apply less steering angle mid corner, but on the entry you'll have to be a bit more precise. So you can offset that with maybe more front wing or lower ride height, softer front suspension, all that. Speaking of suspension, we are here in the suspension tab. 26 front suspension, which is pretty soft. Well, the default is somewhat around 31, 32, and even the preset's always at 41. I've tried at 41 as well. It was kind of balanced, but that did not give me enough grip into the corner. So you run into this condition sometimes where you don't get enough entry speed or entry cornering speed, so you have entry understeer, which can turn into exit oversteer. If you have that in your car, that's a sign that your car is a little too understeery, and instead of making the car a lot more stable, you'll probably have to make the car a lot pointy on the front or a lot more loose on the rear to give it a bit more rotation on entry, so that the car is a bit more balanced by the time you line it up for the exit. So again, that's a tip, sort of an intermediate level tip that you learn from other people from day to day, and always encourage you to try new things out and report it back how you feel about it. Rear suspension 9, 10 just works nicely. Of course, if you go lower, you're gonna be susceptible to a lot more bottoming out, and you'll probably have to raise your ride height to counter that. But I found it on 10 just nice around here, because you have a lot of high speed corners that you want to take, and make sure the rear is also rotating at the same time. So 9 or 10 just nice. 9's a bit more stable. It's even more stable, but be careful, if you go too low, you might have to raise your ride height on the rear just a little bit, so that you don't bottom out on exits or don't bottom out in the middle of corners. And front anti-roll bar, the default was, I think, 8.3 or something, I don't know. I've just played around with it till I felt it was good. Now front anti-roll bar is going to give you a lot more, when you exiting corners, it's going to give you a bit more forward momentum. It's going to keep the car a little understeery on exit, so that you can straighten out the car much easier. If you go softer on the front anti-roll bar, again, it's going to get your car turned in a lot more in the mid corner as well. And on the exit, if you're good enough to straighten out the car quickly, you can always use this softer anti-roll bar. Rear, it does the opposite. If you go higher on the rear anti-roll bar, it allows your car to turn in more into the corner initially, but on the exit, it can make your car a lot more oversteering. So 7.4 is somewhere the balance I found it. If you feel your car is oversteering on exit, you can probably try to reduce the anti-roll bar. If it's understeering, you can always increase the rear anti-roll bar as well, or do the opposite for the front. But if you're having entry understeer and snap oversteer on exit, it's worth trying to increase your rear anti-roll bar, just to give you a bit more rotation on entry, and maybe on the exit the car's a lot more stable, a lot more straighter on exit. So try that out. Front ride height 33 seems to be the best. 32 seems to be bottoming out a little bit on some of the higher curves. 34, 40 is safer if you want to ride that. 33, 39 is a lot more planted, I feel, at the very least, in the race. So you can always go with this. Now bear in mind, if you go softer on the suspension, you'll always have to increase your ride height. Whereas if you go stiffer on the suspension, say you go 31, you can probably get away with one click lower. But like I said, 33 seems to be the sweet spot around here, that you don't bottom out, or 34. Hence why I've gone with 26 on the front, just to feel the same. Brakes, 100% brake pressure, 53 brake bias for qualifying and on most of the high speed corners. 54 is more stable and safer. 55 is usable in the race as well. Well, if you feel the car is a bit too pointy, and just adjust as you go. Tire pressures, very minimum. I started off with minimum pressures here, just because Zandvoort is very high on pressures. In qualifying, I just used 2 clicks, so that the rear is a bit more stable. When you increase the front pressures, it takes a bit of grip off the front in the slower corners, so it gives a bit more stability on the rears. So I found it a bit more better in turn 1 exit, whereas everywhere else it felt just about the same. And you want to keep it low generally in Zandvoort, otherwise you'll overheat your tires. So there you go. 46, 40 will be your race setup, 45 for qualifying, even 46 for race will be qualifying will be okay. 55, 50 transmission, you can always go 60, 51 on the race, on a race start, maybe even 55, 51, and then as you go through the race you can increase your on throttle. Off throttle, lock it before the race because you can't change it. So 51 will be a lot more drivable, a lot more balanced in the race condition. Right, left geometry. Soft front suspension 26, rear is sort of soft on 10 as well. Anti-roll bars somewhere in the middle 7.4. Ride height pretty low 33, 39 or 34, 40 will be your choice. Brakes as you see 154, 53 or 55, and minimum tire pressures to start off. And there you go, we are done with the setup for Zandvoort. And let's quickly save this and proceed to the track guide. So while waiting for the transition, I'd like to thank you as always. If you've watched till here, thank you for your support. Feel free to join the Discord server where we have a lot more people joining in these days to help each other out, find out about setups and whatnot. And I'll see you there as well if you want to. And in the meantime, let's go for a track guide. So see you around if you're leaving now. Otherwise, let's go into the fastest lap around here in Zandvoort. So last corner, coming out of the last corner, you want to stay pretty tight to the banking. Oh my goodness, the revving. Alright, you want to stay pretty tight to the banking and then open up the exit. You don't want to stay too tight. In the race, the marbles are going to kind of ruin your tires here if you stay too tight. Unless you're heading for the pits, then of course it will be useful to jump straight to the right side to enter the pits. Okay, so keep it straight here. You don't have to cut the line or anything. And DRS will be open all the way from the back of the banking. So that is going to be a little sketchy if you are not taking care of your car, or if you're not planted enough with your setup. You're going to be losing your back end as you go through the banking. It's flat out into turn 1, 8th gear, and right after the black box here in the race or in qualifying, somewhere in between, you can see there's a bigger white patch on the grass here. That's what I use for qualifying as a reference. And right as I pass that, I start braking and then trail into the corner. Third gear, keep it as tight as you can. You can even take a slightly wider entry and carry more speed on the exit. Both ways can work depending on how you would like to drive the car. And then straighten out the car as you're exiting. Fourth gear, and right probably half of the curb, not more than that. If you have your floor like this, if you have more of the floor on the curb, it's definitely going to bottom out and it's going to lose you some acceleration. So GG's. Worst case, you're going to spin. So good game, well done, no more race for you. Now into the next part here. This is again very high speed. In qualifying, it's just a bit of a lift and a downshift to get the car turned into the apex. In the race, you'll probably just dab the brakes a bit and be a bit more gentle on here. You can ride the curb a little bit again, but not too much of it, alright? Otherwise, you're going to spin. On the exit, you want to stay somewhat in the middle of the part of this track here. Oh, car looks so dirty, man. Ooh, that's cool. Okay, back to the track guide. Now, you want to stay somewhere in the middle here. As soon as your car is straight, you want to start braking, and then, down to third gear. Hug the apex on the entry. I run a little bit wide here, but that's okay. As long as you get a straight exit, you want to be applying power as soon as you are at the apex. So because it's an uphill acceleration zone, you need to apply throttle much earlier so that you get the momentum going uphill. Alright, so keep it tight right around here. Although I'm almost full lock here, I'm still applying throttle and opening up the steering as I'm applying more and more throttle, so the car maintains good enough grip on the exit. And straighten out as soon as you can. Third gear, fourth gear, keep it tight to the right, and then keep it tight to the left here. It's all flat out in the dries. Don't have to mount the curb on the inside here like last year. It's going to lose some time, but stay tight to the right, and then bring your car over to the left here. This is the end of sector 1. Black box or the orange marker or the exit road, this is your turning in point for the race and qualifying. In the race, you'll be probably downshifting and braking just a bit to get the car pointed in, especially if you're following someone. In the qualifying, it's just almost flat, or you can take it flat, but you risk losing a bit of time on the exit. Downshift, keep the car flat, just a bit of uplift, not uplift, just lift a bit, about 20, 30%, 40% of your throttle. As soon as your car is pointed to the corner here, like you feel like you're going towards the grass, go full throttle, let the car run wide on the exit, trust the downforce in the car, it will not betray you. You don't want to go over the curb anyway, otherwise that's going to unsettle your car just a little bit. Bring your car over to the left. As soon as the curb ends, or as you pass the black box or the pre-release signboard, that's where you want to turn into the apex. So again, you can see how I'm applying the throttle here, steering here. Initially I'm just pointing into the apex and then cranking the steering as I get tighter to the corner as the car slows down, so that the car is not understeering too early. Again, it's a downshift here. You can downshift to 5th in the race. In qualifying, again, you can keep it flat and you can mount a lot of the curb. In qualifying at least. In the race, it's a bit risky to do that on heavy fuel. Now, here I lost a bit of time, but the way you want to line up your car is as soon as you are taking the curb, flat out, and as soon as the AWS boards on the left hand side ends, that's like my visual cue, like slightly after that. Or as soon as the Qatar board on the left hand side starts, that's where I start braking. Double downshift down to 4th gear on the apex. You can even do it in 3rd. Stay tight on the entry and then let the car run wide on the exit. I think I'll run a bit too deep here because I lose a bit of time on the exit. Either way, you want to bring the car to the right side. There's a there's a blue toilet over there on the exit near the marshal. You can use that as a reference. As soon as you pass that, brake and then just a dab on the brake and downshift to 4th. Stay tight, but not too tight on the entry. You want to open up the exit and DRS will be activated on this line. So straight, stick to the left and then bring your car almost at the curb here. Right as the curb starts, that's where you want to be braking, qualifying or race. Maybe a bit early in the race, somewhere around here. In the qualifying, you can just brake a bit later. Now we made a mess here because we didn't increase our brake price up to 54 for the run here. But either way, as you can see, you want to be taking the apex, the curb like it is. You can mount fully, but not any more than this. Of course, the car is running wide here, so I didn't really take it perfectly. Somehow, because of the drifting is somehow quick in this game. Somehow, because of the drift, I maintained the time. I didn't lose much. On the exit, you want to stay tight and let the car run wide. You don't want to mount too much of the exit curb. And this is me just staying safe. Bring the car all the way to the left hand side, 50-meter board. That's probably going to get destroyed, so your black marker board on the top left is your best reference here. As soon as you hit that, downshift to 5th, a dab on the brake. You need to dab just a little bit, otherwise if you just let the downshift do the work, you may not be able to get the car pointed early on the apex. You can touch the curb a little bit on entry, but it's going to be a bit sketchy sometimes, but you want to stay as close as you can on the entry. Power applied as soon as you are at the apex here, right around here, and then let the car run wide on the exit. Trust the downforce again, trust the car. If it's pointy enough, it will turn in and it will stick to the ground. And this is as much curb you can possibly take in qualifying and in race. And DRS will be activated right around here, so it's crucial for you to get your car straightened out here. Hence why it's a lot more important to take this corner a bit more cautiously if you need to, so that you get a better exit here. And as soon as you're straight, the car is already activating DRS. Stay tight on the banking here. And in qualifying, you can probably stay a bit tighter to the right to gain a few more thousands, but you may lose some time because of tire scrubbing. Down to the finish line, and that is a lap of Zandvoort. I think probably there's a 0.6 or 0.5 in there. We did not screw up the chicane, but nevertheless, we are here to get a setup that is going to be viable for the race. So, hope you have fun, and I'll see you in the next one. Again, I don't know what track it's going to be. We'll definitely do Monza, which is coming up in next week's Real Life Grand Prix. And in between, we'll have a few more tracks to cover. So see y'all, take care, and bye-bye.